Welcome to One Brand. I'm Ann, here to share global insights. Today, we explore why the United States, once the undisputed global hegemon, is clearly in decline, and how China's red bloc is poised to take its place. Lee Jae-myung is the president of South Korea. Though he denies it, he is seen as taking a pro-China stance in foreign policy. He aims to maintain strong security ties with the US while expanding economic cooperation with China. But Washington is pressuring him over tariffs and defense costs. Now, his strategy faces a tough test amid growing US-China tensions. As America's grip weakens, the red bloc seizes the opportunity. Like a king stripped of his crown, America risks losing trust and falling from grace. When the leader falters, the challenger claims the spoils. Furthermore, the US is facing internal tensions within its leadership. Trump is now mocked as Taco Trump, always chickens out. Next, let's examine China's likely strategic response. China will leverage RCEP and bilateral FTAs to reroute supply chains away from the dollar. Since its launch in 2022, RCEP has become the world's largest free trade agreement, with 15 member countries. By 2024, China has signed FTAs with 28 countries, one of them part of the Belt and Road Initiative, covering 30% of global GDP. More than 20 countries, including Australia and Thailand, have already signed trade deals with China, and major European powers like Germany and France are now thinking about joining too. The topic of rerouting supply chains will be covered in the next section. The ultimate goal is to replace SWIFT's dollar clearing with CIP's yuan settlement. China is expanding the use of CIPS to reduce its dependence on the US dollar. Since its launch in 2015, transaction volume has surged by 80% since 2022. Over 160 banks are currently participating in the system. However, its daily settlement volume remains around $60 billion. That's only about 3% of the CIPS network. The use of the yuan in global transactions is steadily growing. As of 2023, it accounted for 3 to 4% of SWIFT payments. In February 2024, it briefly overtook the yen at 4%. However, adjusted figures excluding the euro placed it at 2.8%. China has established currency swap lines with 40 central banks. Some countries, like Russia and Iran, have begun settling oil trades in yuan. The yuan is set to play an increasingly important role in the global economy. Then, we analyze President Trump's approach of running the state like a business. President Trump treated the US like a corporation, using tariffs and withdrawal threats to force concessions. But can sovereign nations, accountable to their people, really be treated like corporations? Ongoing trade conflicts have fueled recession fears and damaged America's free trade image. Trump returned to office with the same status corporation mindset, prioritizing transactional gains over global norms. He reactivated tariffs as pressure tools, targeting imports from Mexico, Canada, and China. This reignited trade tensions and raised costs for American consumers. He also hinted at pulling out of the USMCA in 2026, using its sunset clause as leverage. His criticism of the WTO resumed as well, accusing it of favoring other nations over the US. Backed by America First rhetoric, he distanced the US from multilateral trade systems. As a result, global supply chains remain fragile, and trust in US trade leadership continues to erode. Trade tensions under Trump's second term have had visible consequences for consumers. Tariffs on imports have driven up prices, not only for foreign goods, but also for US products that rely on imported parts. In many cases, consumers are now paying more for basic necessities. At the same time, replacing banned Chinese products hasn't been easy. Supply chain disruptions have led to delays and even empty shelves, as we see here. For many households, especially low-income families, higher costs have forced cutbacks on everyday spending. Over time, this may reduce consumer confidence and strain the broader economy. The United States today shows all 6 classic signs of decline, with 4 already fully underway. The first, overextension costs. Decades of global military deployments have inflated defense spending and starved Domestic infrastructure echoing Rome's frontier drain. The United States now spends approximately $997 billion on defense, about 37% of global military expenditures, burdening its economy as the cost of empire. The second, economic distortion. Since the 2000s, U.S. manufacturing employment has plunged while finance and tech sectors expanded, reminiscent of Spain's silver-induced stagnation. Manufacturing employment fell from 19.5 million in 1979 to 11.5 million after the 2009 financial crisis, and by the end of 2024 remained around 12.9 million, 8% of total employment, down from 21% in 1980. The third, political fracture. Extreme polarization and congressional gridlock have eroded trust, mirroring Rome's soldier-emperor era. In 2024, the House polarization score reached 0.90 and the Senate 0.88, making bipartisan cooperation almost impossible. The fourth, social unrest. Widening income gaps from the Rust Belt collapse to urban inequality fuel domestic discontent. The top 10% now hold 48% of total income, exacerbating social divisions. The fifth, external challengers. China's rapid advances in electric vehicles, AI, and semiconductors challenge America's technological lead. China's GDP has reached about 70% of the US level, an unprecedented parity since World War II, and its annual military budget now exceeds $300 billion. The sixth, loss of influence, de-dollarization efforts, and allied doubts undermine US leadership, paralleling Britain's post-Suez decline. The dollar's share of global foreign exchange reserves has fallen from over 70% 2 decades ago to about 58% in 2024. This convergence confirms that US global leadership has entered its decline phase. Why you should pay attention to Chinese stocks? Under Trump, the US imposed aggressive global tariffs, but this force-based approach backfired. It isolated allies, damaged trust, and weakened America's leadership image. China responded with patience and long-term strategy rooted in trade. It gained credibility through quiet diplomacy, not confrontation. Now, China is overtaking the US in AI, electric vehicles, and batteries. America, like Samson, grows weaker from within. Meanwhile, China's momentum only grows stronger. Investing directly in Chinese shares is difficult due to capital controls and regulatory barriers. That's why global investors prefer Hong Kong-listed Chinese stocks. They offer exposure to China's top companies, but with international access and better liquidity. If you want China's growth without the restrictions, Hong Kong is the gateway. Choose according to your investment style, Hong Kong ETFs, or US-listed ones like CWEB and YINN. The era of US global leadership is clearly declining, reflecting historical power shifts. China's GDP has reached 70% of the US, with rising military spending and tech dominance. The dollar's global dominance is fading as de-dollarization accelerates. As America fades, the red bloc stands ready to take the lead. So, how will the United States and China evolve from here? Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and like the video.